Okay. So thank you, Megan, for the opportunity to say a few words and to share some caregiving resources with guests at this event. My name is Linda, and I'm a volunteer with AARP. Here at AARP New Hampshire, we are focused on the health, financial security, and social connections critical to the well-being of the 50+ in the Granite State. We carry out our work through targeted advocacy at the state and federal levels, compelling engagement of the 50+ community statewide, and also serving as a trusted resource for information for our members and the public. I want to welcome you to this virtual gathering, whether you are a new caregiver or an experienced caregiver. Many of us who are not now caregivers will become one with life's unexpected events. We want to be sure that all of you are aware of the many resources available at AARP for caregivers that provide helpful information, articles, stories, and virtual offerings to connect with others. A helpful guide called Prepare to Care can be found at the site and is available in multiple languages and for specific audiences such as veterans and the LGBTQ community. So I'll put that link in the chat. It is very important that caregivers also make time to care for themselves. So we're so glad that you're joining us tonight and allowing yourself to take a break and enjoy a fun activity. AARP is here to support you, and we hope you enjoy tonight's Creative Night In. In just a minute, I'll begin to record the event, which I actually already did, and it's going to be available probably by tomorrow. I'm going to put that address in the chat as well so that you'll see it. And then if you have any questions during the session, please put those in the chat. I'll watch for those and we'll address those periodically throughout the evening. So without further ado, Megan, take it away and thank you.
Thank you, Linda. Thank you for being here. It's always a pleasure to see you and stay up to date on all those resources for AARP members and participants. So welcome everyone and happy holidays. I have put on my holiday earrings for you. We're all starting to figure out how and what we want to do this holiday season. We all celebrate a little bit differently, and that's what makes us all individuals and unique, and very similar to our paintings and our painting styles. So if you're new here, my name is Megan Van Wart, and I live in Vermont, and it's an absolute pleasure to work with AARP New Hampshire for your creative nights as caregivers or as learning about the caregiving process. I know it can be stressful. So tonight is a night for you to slow down. I'll remind you to breathe. I'll remind you to stretch your shoulders and stretch your neck to enjoy the process. I'll also remind you to not take things too seriously. Tonight's inspiration is really quite simple. So I love simple inspirations because it kind of takes the weight off our shoulders a little bit. So I'm excited to share this with you, and we'll go ahead and kick things off. So I'm painting on 11 by 14 canvas paper tonight, and I have a pencil, which will do a little bit of light sketching, and I have an array of acrylic paints. You don't need fancy paints to participate in our classes. If you don't even have paints and you ever want to join us with watercolors or acrylic or colored pencils, join us with whatever art supplies you have, because you will fit just in no matter what. And I walk us through every step of the way. So I'm so glad that you're here. We have so many returning folks and so many new, and you all are from all over the country. So I'm here representing New England, and I know there's folks here from Hawaii. So we're all across the US, literally, and we'll have a great time tonight. We'll go ahead and get started in just a minute. So feel free to grab the supplies you need to get going. I'm going to be painting here with you every step of the way. If you have any questions throughout class tonight, I encourage you to use the chat window. I will monitor that as best to my ability, and we'll go ahead and jump right in. So one of the things that you can consider for tonight's class is painting the background a color. So if you want to do that, you can. The background color in this inspiration is a beige color. You could also do like a light minty green. You could do a pink color. You can pick and choose. And I will put the inspiration into the chat window again. So if folks are just joining, I have it handy quickly. So if more folks join and need that, just let me know. Okay, perfect. So I just put that in the chat window. You're so welcome. So let's think about what color our background could be. You could do a light pink background. You could do a minty green background. That could look nice. You could do a light blue background, like it's the sky and there's a wreath right there. So you can pick and choose, but we're gonna do a light color of choice, okay? So let's see, what am I inspired to do tonight? And my video just went out. I will plug that back in here in just a minute. All right, give me just a minute here. So think about what you want your, there we go. Sorry, my cable was wiggling around. um, think about what you want your background to be. And I'm just turning that video on again, so give me just a minute. I think as I'm getting the video working here, I think that I am going to do, I might try like a minty green. That could be fun and different. All right, we're just going to flip this. So I'm going to do a minty green. And I'll play with my video here in a minute as we get going. Oops. Oh, there we go. It clicked. Woohoo! Sorry, the cord was wiggling around. Apologies. So I might do a minty green. Sorry, Zoom is acting funny. Apologies. There we go. All right, carefully. All right, so I'm going to find a background color of choice, and I'm going to do a minty green. So I'm going to use white and green to make a lighter green color. A nice light blue is another really good choice for tonight, but I'm going to go green just because I'm just following my intuition for the class. So if you don't have green paint on hand, you can easily use blue and yellow to make green. So I'm going to go ahead and grab a plate that I'm going to mix colors on. And I have a clean plate right here. And I'm going to grab a little bit of blue. I'm just going to do a small dollop, and I'm going to really water this down. So I have a small dollop of blue right there. Doesn't need to be a lot. And I'm going to use white as well. So you're going to bring your white paint out. I have a small dollop of yellow. So yellow with a tiny touch of blue will give you green. So I'll mix green in just a minute, but I'm also going to put white on my plate, which is really important. So white paint, I'm going to put that right over here. And you're going to use a big brush that you have at home. I usually use about a 1/2 inch brush. I'll show you what that looks like. And I'm going to just take a little bit of blue. A little blue goes a long way. I'm going to mix it right with my yellow to make a green. So you can see I have a nice grass green. I'm going to take a scoop of my green and I'm going to mix it with my white for my background color. Now, as you mix this, you're going to get a certain tone of green. It might be a little lime green. Again, pick and choose. But for me, I want this, and this is actually, it's pretty minty. I'm going to add a little bit more green. But if I wanted to dull this down, I love adding a tiny touch of black. And black sounds scary, but it just gives this green a little bit of a gray tone. So it kind of gives me like a light olive green, which I think could be really pretty for tonight's inspiration. So find a color of choice that you want to paint your background. And that's what you're going to do. You're going to paint the whole background of your canvas this color. So right now I have a minty green, but I'm going to add a tiny touch of black and I'm going to mix it in. And it just got dark pretty quickly. So I can always add a little bit more white to it if I want to. But it's just giving me a little bit more of a gray tone, which is what I wanted. There we go. So then I'm just going to paint the entire canvas. This is kind of a light sage color. I'm doing long, smooth brush strokes. My pretty bow is in the way. I don't want to get any green paint on that. I'm doing some long, smooth brush strokes. And this is a trick. While your brush and your canvas is wet, you can take your cup of water and you can dip your brush in the cup of water, wipe off the water droplet, and you can put a little bit of elbow, a little bit of pressure, and you can use water to move around this paint. And it spreads everything out for you. So I'm just dipping, getting a little bit more water, putting a little pressure, and moving this paint around. See that? So I'm going to paint the entire background this color. If I want it to be lighter, I can add more water or more white paint. But look, I'm just using water. To move this around. And let me know if my video is not working. It just stopped for me, but keep painting your background as we're going here. All right. All right, I'm just going to switch my video here. I think it just cut out. Let's try that. So just we're going to keep painting the background in entirety. And if the AARP panelists could confirm if you could see my video or not, just send me a note or not.
Yeah, I can only see the bottom part,
Okay, cool.
bottom few inches.
Okay, is that better now?
Nope, it's the same.
Yeah, it looks like it's frozen. Okay. I am just going to pause this. No worries. Everybody, you can keep painting your backgrounds. There's something weird going on here. There we go. We'll just use this.
Yep, you're back.
Okay. Yeah, it was just my connection to my camera was just being funny. So no big deal. All right. So we're going to just use a little bit of water. No worries. We're just using a little bit of water to paint our backgrounds here. And a little bit of paint. And you're just doing long, smooth, horizontal brush strokes. There we go. And you can go nice and slow. If anybody's doing short little brush strokes, I encourage you just to try some longer straight ones. And if your background looks a little bit, has lots of brush strokes all over, it's okay. If your background ends up having like a little bit of an antique-y look, a little bit of a texture, guess what? No big deal at all. It actually will look kind of neat with everything on top of it. And if there's like multiple colors, you can see how I'm getting a little bit lighter here. That's okay. This is going to be a nice fun background for all of our detail on top of it. So dip your brush in a little bit of water, go all the way to the edges. If you're painting on a canvas board. And sometimes I love how a little water, and water is always optional, and I love using it in my classes because it just gives you so many different unexpected variables when you're painting. But I'm just putting, you can see it's a little liquidy right here. I'm just putting a little water on my plate. It's quite fun. And we're just going to work our way all the way down. I typically use 11 by 14 canvases or canvas paper. I'm painting on canvas paper tonight, which I love painting on because it goes in a frame nice and easily. And in my studio, I love swapping my artwork in and out. If you've taken these classes before, I'm sure you have quite a little selection, a little gallery going on. And I always love seeing photos of folks. See, sometimes you send me an email after the class with your artwork. I always love getting those. Seeing your progress and all of your artwork over time with us. And if you're new, I encourage you to come back. These are a lot of fun. But we take our time with the backgrounds. Want nice smooth coverage. Painting all the way over to the edge. And this is where you can just settle in and enjoy the process. You can't mess any of this up, I promise. I'm going to pull this back just a little bit. There we go. And again, I'm just mixing a little bit of water and a little bit of paint, and I'm just working my way down. And if you have any questions through class, I encourage you to use the chat window. We'll take care of you there. And again, our big thanks to our friends at AARP New Hampshire for having us. I encourage you to check out all the links that they shared. In particular, they have a great YouTube space where you can subscribe to get updates from a lot of the resources in video form, which is really nice, as well as that's where our paint classes are going to be stored. So you have access to a lot of our previous paint classes and a lot of the other classes and resources they have to offer right within that YouTube space. So I encourage you to check out the YouTube space, but also their website for all the really valuable information they're sharing with us. So I have a little bit of an ombre going on. I always love embracing painting the background because it can be so many different things. But I just want nice smooth brush strokes. And you can do another coat on top of this if you want to, but I'm using a lot of smooth brush strokes because we want this to dry as quickly as possible. So if you haven't painted in a long time, you typically use a lot more paint than someone who paints more often. So if you have any wet paint, what I encourage you to do is take your brush and go over the wet spots, like left, right, work that paint in, get the air moving to dry some of that space. So I'm going to keep an eye on the clock. Everybody's doing great. Just take a few minutes to finish painting the background. And we're going to let it dry so we can do the next step. Okay. So take a few minutes. Take a couple deep breaths, settle into the process. And we will give a moment for our backgrounds to dry.
So Megan, I may jump ahead just because we have a few minutes here and we'll talk about this again at the end, but your next class is the 22nd of January, which is,
I can confirm.
yeah, which is different than if people are looking for the second Wednesday of the month. In January, there is an exception. It's actually the fourth Wednesday because New Year's is on the 1st.
Yep.
So in this case, it's actually the fourth Wednesday in January. So the
Perfect.
22nd, 6 to 8 will be your next painting class. And we'll
Yep,
mention
that
that
makes
again at
sense.
the end, but in case anybody leaves, just so that they know where to look for you.
Yeah, that's perfect. Exactly. Yep, I encourage you to sign up. I'm just switching my video again, so nobody's missing out on anything. Thank you for that. And I'm really excited. I'll take a look and I'll share a little bit of a sneak peek on what our inspiration will be as well, which is always fun. All right, and I'm turning my video on in just a moment. I was just playing with my camera, and I'll turn that back in just a moment. All right. Hmm. No worries. Yeah, so all of the recordings will be on YouTube. Absolutely. All right, my video. I'm just going to try minimizing this and popping back up. It won't let me turn it back on, so just give me a minute. Everybody continue working on your background. You're not missing anything, I promise. And one of the questions is the inspiration available, or is the link to sign up? I'm going to remove the spotlight on me for a minute. Hey, Mary and Linda, I'm going to log out and log back in. My video is not working, but I'm going to pop out for just a second and come back in if you can let me back in, if that works. And folks, go ahead and just finish up your backgrounds and I will be right back. Linda, I'm going to just pop out really quick. All right, sorry about that, everybody. My computer kind of froze with Zoom when I was playing with the video. So right now you're finishing up your backgrounds. I'm going to go ahead and pin my screen. There we go. And then I want you to find a pencil handy if you have one. Again, if you have any wet spots, take a minute just to brush over some of those wet spots. Mine is almost dry. With acrylic paint, I love using acrylic for these classes because it dries quickly. So mine is like pretty close to being dry. And one of the things I'm going to do is I'll give you all a minute. If you need to get a hair dryer or get the magazine and wave yours dry, feel free to do that. But in just 2 minutes, I will we'll sketch some of our next steps. So get a pencil if you have one. And we'll do the circular shape of our wreath as our next step. If you want to play with it now, if your canvas is dry enough, that's fine. If you also would like to grab a round object from your kitchen or your living room, you are welcome to find something round. I think I'm going to freehand mine tonight because this is fairly straightforward. But if you wanted to grab like a salad bowl to like trace around to have a perfect circle, absolutely. We always appreciate and support our guides. I will go ahead and put the inspiration in the chat window as well. Absolutely. All right, so I'm uploading the inspiration again in the chat window, and I'm just going to use a pencil, and then I will actually use a Sharpie. Do not use a Sharpie at home to outline my circle so you can see it. And I'm going to freehand it. Again, if you wanted to go into your kitchen or somewhere and find something round, like a salad bowl or a small plate, you're welcome to. But the goal is to have some spacing around a circle. And I'm just going to freehand it because I love to be a little spontaneous in these classes. And this is not perfectly round. It's okay. I can fix it. Pencil, luckily, you can erase on top of. So I'm going to use a Sharpie just to show you what my wreath looks like. And I have it centered in the middle. It's just a round area. And I'm using a Sharpie just to be a little daring. And these are actually going to be like branches. So I'm just going to do little branches as I do my Sharpie lines just for you to. So right now you are doing just a circle. I'm just doing some like wreath like branches just so you can see because I am using a Sharpie. But you're just doing a circle. So this is where my little birds are going to be sitting on the inside. I'm going to have little green leaves and ivy all the way around. I'm going to put a cute little bow on top. So visually, I have centered my wreath kind of in the center. It's not perfectly in the middle, but I have some nice padding around the edges. So for me, that was important. We are going to use a small black paint with a small paintbrush to do the work that I just did in just a moment. Okay. So take your time just to get the circular outline in with a pencil. And then I'm going to grab a small brush and a little bit of black paint. And we're going to get in a little bit of that fine detail together. So just a circle, that's all you need. And then I'm going to put a little bit of black paint on my plate. And just grab a small brush of choice. You want to use a small brush that you're in control over, and you can decide how thick or how thin you want your branches to be. Over here, it's pretty dainty. So I grabbed a size 2 brush. This is a size 2 round chip brush. You could use a 2, 3, 4, or 5. It doesn't matter. Because the important part is you can like spin your brush on your plate, and you can manage the tip. You want to have a nice fine tip. And from your lines, you want to travel along the line, and you want to add a couple flyaway branches. So see, I have a little flyaway branch there. I'm going to alternate from the top to the bottom. So I did one of the interiors here, and I came down a little bit, and I did a little branch here. We're going to put leaves and berries. So with your black paint, work your circular around and add in these little flyaway branches. So it's going to look like this kind of style wreath. And we can add more branches after, no big deal. Don't worry about any pencil lines right now because you can erase all the pencil lines after. This is using acrylic paint tonight. We're using acrylic paint for our class. If you wanted to use watercolor, you could absolutely use watercolor. It's up to you. We always welcome you to use whatever mediums you wish. So I'm just traveling my way around, giving this wreath a little structure. And in the inspiration, it's fairly simple. So you can do as much or as little decoration on your wreath as you wish. So just go slow. So you can see I'm just doing a little bit of this branch-like detail as I work my way around. I'm alternating these interior branches and exterior branches. And I can always add more if I want to, but I'm kind of creating this nice circular structure as we go. And I do have some pencil here, which you can't see, but I'm gonna go in and erase it after, so no big deal. No big deal at all. So this is just giving us framework. So once you have the basic framework, and we're gonna do this with all the objects. And if there's folks that have questions, we can pause and answer those too. But I'm going to keep this simple. I'm going to use just black lines and let it dry for right now. Because we're going to do our birds next. And you can figure out, oh, my vocals are echoing. That's interesting. Is anyone else hearing me echo?
I'm not hearing you echo.
Okay. Maybe whoever's hearing me echo may have have opened Zoom twice. So they're hearing an echo. Okay.
Yeah, or if they have their cell phone and their,
Maybe like they're here, they've logged in twice and there's double windows. That's the only thing I could
Yeah.
think of.
other people are saying no echo as well.
Okay.
She is asking if this is watercolor, and you had said no, it was acrylic.
It is not. No, it's acrylic paint. Yeah. So we're keeping tonight's inspiration so easy. So you can spend as much or as little time as you wish. Okay. So really basic black wreath. Sometimes in our classes, we do like really heavily detail-oriented classes. Some classes we do easy. This is kind of a nice in-between class for tonight. So next, once you're done your black wreath, and again, no rush, take your time. This is basic framework for our composition. We're going to use our pencil and we're going to do our bird outlines. So sometimes when you paint or you do creative projects, it's nice to do some sketching, kind of boosts our confidence a little bit to be like, I like the size of our birds. And oh, maybe it's because I took 5 minutes and I sketched them before I started painting. Because sometimes when we do birds, like as an example, maybe like a blue jay or a cardinal on a branch, and we freehand the birds with paint, the head might be too big or the body might be too big. And we'd be like, oh, I really wish the head was a little smaller. So if you just take a few minutes using a pencil, we can be like, oh yeah, I really like the shape of that bird. I'm not going to touch it. Or the bird needs to be a little bit chubbier. We love a chubby little chickadee bird, don't we? So as we start the next step, you can figure out how many birds you want to put in here. This is a fairly small wreath in my opinion, so you could do 3 little birds if you want to. And we're going to use ovals for the shape of birds, or you can do 2 birds. So you decide up front the number of birds that you want, because if you're doing 2, you're going to do 2 little ovals next to each other, right? And if you're doing 3, you're going to make the ovals small enough to fit within the wreath to fit 3 little birds. So keep that in mind. But let's go ahead and do some birds shapes together. The birds are going to be sitting on the wreath. So the ovals are hovering. So I'm just going to do round my birds are going to be kind of small because I'm going to try to get 3 in here. So I'm going to do round little oval like bodies. And some of these might be a little bit different in shape, and that's okay. And if you want to draw a little head, maybe one bird's looking one way. You can do a little rounded head on top too. And I'm going to outline these in a Sharpie. Do not do this at home. My birds are really small, which is fine. I'm going to go for small birds tonight. So I did a little bit of head on this one. and they're floating above the wreath because I'm going to put little legs coming down. So you can do an oval-like body and a circle on top. It's absolutely up to you. But those are my little bird shapes. I did small birds. That's just what happened tonight. I'm happy with it. All good. I have plenty of room for text in here if I want text. Okay, if you want to use the pencil to do little legs coming down, there's actually a little tail. So there's a little tail. If I want to do another little legs coming down with a little tail, I can do that too. So anything you want to sketch to help you. There you go. So I just did a few little bits of tail. There might be a little bit of a wing coming out here. You can pick and choose. Those are just like, they look like little obscure pears, basically. And with my paint, I can change the shape of these a little bit. But I just did little birds because that's just what came to me tonight. So now that you have your little birds in, you can figure out if you want any wings. So there is a wing over here on this left bird. So I have a little bit of a wing coming down. So I'm just drawing a little line. I'll use my Sharpie to come in. There's no wings on this bird. There's a couple wings in the background. So I'm just doing little lines back here. And then this bird doesn't really have any wings. He just has a bunch of chest feathers, so it's just fine. So I'll draw my wings in with my Sharpie just so you can see it. We're gonna do black outlining for all this after with paint, but I'm doing the Sharpie just so you can see my outlining. But with your pencil, you'll see it on your own. So I just did the wings. I did one exterior wing on this bird, and I just did two little side wings on this one. And this one doesn't have any wings. I mean, you can give it a little wing if you want to, like that. That's fine. And I might, re-round the top of this head. Nice thing with pencil is you can kind of change what you're doing. You can also kind of pick the position of the beaks. So this looks like these two birds are talking to each other because their beaks are pointing each other. And then this beak is pointed this way. So I just did a little bit of a Sharpie just so you can see. Yeah, there we go. So this is, I want you to all use pencil, and this is just me using a Sharpie so you can see the lines. And my birds are pretty small. And I'll bring this a little closer for you on the easel. All right, let's bring it a little closer. There we go. So get the pencil detail in. And we want our birds to be placed so we can do all the other detail around. So we're gonna do all the other detail first as base colors to let it dry. And then we'll work on our birds. If you wanted to, once you're done drawing your birds, if you wanted to do a little bit of a bow at the top, you can do a little bit of a bow, a centered square bow, and then some squared loops. And again, I'll outline this. I'll outline this so you can see it. My bow is pretty small, but it's okay. I guess I'm going dainty tonight. Again, I'll outline this for you in black just so you can see it. Your bow can be big or small. We're going to be painting our bow in red. So there's my bow. I did a really tiny, dainty bow. No big deal. So I'm doing a really simple, kind of small design tonight. That's totally fine. But we're going to start with, if you wanted to, we're going to start with the leaf-like detail. And we're going to freehand the leaf detail. And one of the things I'll share about tonight's inspiration is we could easily spend like 2 or 3 hours on being really delicate with all the detail. And our classes with AARP New Hampshire, we like to keep these really simple and approachable. So our classes are usually about an hour and a half or so. So what we'll do is we're going to do some dainty green leaves and we'll do some holly leaves. And then we'll do basic coats for all those objects. If you want to go in and draw all those first, you can. I don't think we need to be honest. I'm just going to use a small brush and we'll make a dark, like a nice green color. We're going to freehand some of those leaves. And I'll teach you how to delicately place different variety of leaves all the way around our wreath to make it look natural. Okay? So we have some of the basic objects in, which is really good. Now we can put our leaves around and then we'll tuck some berries in around those leaves. So that's just a little bit of pulling back behind the curtain so you know where we're going. And we're going to go nice and slow. But again, everyone paints at different speeds. So please just take your time. Courtesy of AARP New Hampshire, the class is recorded, so you have access to this. And you may be watching this YouTube video in the future. So I encourage you to like this and be sure to, again, to subscribe to their YouTube channel because they have some great content that can support you and your not only creative adventures, but also all the other amazing resources they have on there. But without further ado, when you're ready, let's go ahead and mix a darker green. I have a green background, so I'm going to make a darker green for some of these leaves. So I'm going to make a little bit more green paint because I've almost run out. So I need a little bit more blue, a little bit more yellow, and I'll add a little black to the paint to make it like a darker, like I don't want to say army green, but similar. So I'm just adding a little more yellow and blue. And I'm just going to find a nice small brush of choice. A 2 or a 3 is fine. If you want to be really delicate and tiny, you can use like a size 1 brush. But to make green, a little touch of blue in yellow. And this is a little bit of a grass green for me, so I want to darken this up a little bit. And I could even bring some of this green over into my grayish green, and I can darken it from here as well. So you can kind of play with what greens you want to use. A tiny bit of black will go a long way. So I'm making a nice ivy green, a green color of choice. That's what I'm going for. That's a nice color right there. Let's see what this is going to go. What if I add a little bit of black to this? Let's see what color green this may be. But we always take a few minutes in our classes to find the green, find the color that you like the best. And that allows us just to better connect with our artwork. I'm going to run out of this green, so I'm going to make a little bit more. I've taught hundreds of art classes, and one tip, really important advice, is for you to always make enough of the color you know you're going to need. So I'm going to grab a little bit more yellow, and I'm going to make a little bit more of that green. So a little bit of yellow there. And I'm going to make more. All right, so I'm going to mix this around. I'm going to make more of this green because I don't want to run out of it. Very important. And I'm just going to mix this. And I want to have enough of it to add in some holly leaves and to add in some of those delicate other leaves as well. So I kind of have this color here. I'm going to go in and grab a little bit of black. And it's going to be just a little bit darker of a color. So you can always start with a color and test it out. Some of you may not have done a green background, so you may not be as particular as I am right now about finding the right color. So I'm just finding, oh, there we go. I'm finally getting my dark green. So again, as you find your right color, make sure you're using the right brush. Now I'm looking at this brush and I want to use a little smaller of a brush because I want to be able to do some of that sweeping holly-like detail. So I'm being mindful as an artist and I'm going to grab a smaller brush. This brush is a much better choice. This is a 1 brush. It might actually be a fraction, a 2/0 fraction brush. So this is a smaller brush and I'm going to have a lot more control over the brush strokes. So let's add in a little bit of this holly leaves going around. So I'm going to start on one side and I'm just going to start with the point of a leaf. And I'm going to swoop in and in. And I'm going to do a little bit of a holly leaf right there. And I'm going to go on the inside And I'm going to kind of change the position. There we go. So I'm going to do like a cluster of like 2 or 3 of these holly leaves, and I'm going to space it out a little bit. I'm going to come down here and do a little bit more. So I'm leaving a little bit of a space in between these clusters because we're going to add some other leaves as well. Some like simple, more simple rounded like leaves. So this is, again, this is just a technique that I'm doing tonight. If you don't want to do this, you don't have to. I always encourage you to do your own thing, incorporate your own ideas for our classes. But see, I'm doing little clusters of 2. Perfect. And another trick is you can take your canvas without cricking your neck, rotate your canvas on the side and continue to work your way around. So there's a point at the top of these holly leaves. They kind of go in like U shapes. And this one's going right in around the birds. And see, I'm just spacing out the holly leaves. So take your time. I'm just rotating my canvas. It also makes your leaves look a little bit more natural as you are there we go. So again, I'm adding just a couple. If you want to add more, feel free. But I'm rotating my canvas. I'm just doing 2 at a time. We're going to add a different style leaf in just a minute. And one of the most important things about these holly leaves is don't strive for perfection. Some of you probably love this. You're really detail oriented. Some of you might be sweating because you just want it to look perfect. Just note, I want you to go at whatever speed is best for you. You don't have to strive for perfection. You can see I'm just rotating this around and I have a nice balance of holly leaves. And there's a question right here. The paper that I'm using, so Nancy has a question about the paper. I'm using acrylic paper. So this is 11 by 14 canvas, like acrylic paper you can use for watercolors, sorry, oils or acrylics. It's amazing paper. I love it. I use it for all my classes. I love it because I can put it in a frame easily in my studio to show off my work and appreciate my work. But you can buy it at you can buy it online. I can drop a link to it in the chat window if folks are interested in taking a peek. Happy to do that for you by the end of class. So any way you want to put this green foliage on your picture, feel free. And we're going to connect all of these. I will, Nancy, no problem. I will connect all of these leaves in just a minute. Right now, they're all floating. Don't worry about that. If you wanted to do another round of leaves, and again, take your time. There's no hurry. I'm going to do some of these small petal-like leaves. So they're kind of rounded and they're a little dainty. And they're in little clusters of 2. So you could try that. So this is just a different style of foliage you could pepper in. So I'm alternating from the inside to the outside. And I'm just adding as much green foliage as I wish. I am intentionally taking a simple approach. We've done a lot of reads in these classes, and not a lot, but a handful. And you could make a full, holiday wreath, or you could make it dainty like mine. So you can pick and choose. It does not matter. But I am being intentional about adding variety of this green foliage. I'm doing soft, gentle brush strokes because we're going to tuck in some really adorable berries here and there as well. And if there's any other objects that you wanted to add in to your wreath, like little acorns or whatever, anything goes. So feel free to know that you can incorporate those if you wish. Now we're going to do black outlining to all of these objects, or at least some accent detail. So these are all just basic colors and objects of our wreath. I'm doing a little leaf and I'm just doing them, and they can be floating a little bit. They don't have to be touching the wreath. You can do big leaves and little leaves. These are all like long and skitty form. So I'm going to give you a few minutes to play with that, but we want a nice array of leaves. And you're going to look around and you'll see places where you might want to add a little more here or there. It's absolutely up to you. Like adding a little bit of a green leaf to tuck in is fine. You'll see little gaps. Just add a little leaf. If you see a little gap, that's totally fine. But I like the simplicity. And there's something else that I want you to notice. Look at the texture that we've visually created by adding two different kinds of leaves. It was quite simple to add two different forms, but we were intentional to do that. And this is the outcome by adding different textured, styled elements in a really simple way. So I'm going to give you all a couple minutes to play with those leaves. I want you to relax. I will go ahead, as you're playing with those leaves, I'll grab a link to the paper so you can see what I'm painting on. But if you have any questions as you're painting, please let me know. All right, let's see here. Right. And I will give you the direct link of what I use, so you have that. It's by a company called Kansan, and I'll drop that right in the chat window so you have access to that. And if there's any questions as you're painting that, please let me know. There is a link to the paper I use. It's by a company called Kansan. It's 11 by 14. It's 24 sheets. It's quite lovely, but I highly suggest you try using that. All right. So I'll keep an eye on the clock. Everyone's doing great. You can see I have a nice green background. I'm going to paint my birds in. My birds are going to be red and white with a little bit of gray. And the text is optional, so we're just getting in some of those basic colors. And we'll move and we'll do our red berries and we'll do our red coloring next. So the goal is to get in the green leaves, let them dry. We're going to switch to red next. If we need to go back in and do a second coat for the green, we can do that after. No problem. So we'll do red in just a couple minutes. You can do tiny red berries, clusters of 2 or 3 or 4. It's up to you, but we'll wait a few minutes. So if you need to use the bathroom or take a little stretch break, you're welcome to do that. We will intend on keeping tonight's class to about an hour and a half tonight, which should be plenty of time for all of our details. Right. So if you're thinking about switching to the red, I encourage you to mix a little red paint with a little bit of white, because when you put red on a background color, if you have a high quality red, it's going to stand out no problem. But if you don't have a high quality, like thick red paint, you're going to need multiple coats. So sometimes I'm just going to find a small brush of choice. Sometimes by mixing red and white together, or even white as a background, it helps add a little bit more pigmentation. So I'm just taking a little bit of white here, and I'm mixing it with a little bit of red. And if it's pinky, that's fine, because I can do a second coat on this. It's just going to cover up the background color. So I'm just spinning my brush, and this is a little pinky, so that's no problem. I'll put red on top of it. And I'm going to come in, I'm going to tuck little clusters of berries in different areas. So little round balls, little round berries. I'm going to do a cluster of 3 right there. And these are pretty small. You can make them, and I'll try to make them a little bit more red for you. You can make them, you put them anywhere you want. You can do dots. You can do lots of berries. Again, I will make these more red after. You can do larger clusters of berries, like clusters of 4. The berries can be touching or not touching. So there's a little cluster of 4 right there. And try to space the berries out on your wreath. I like changing the number of berries in each cluster, and I'm spacing them out evenly. And I will come in and do a second coat for these berries. And my berries are not perfectly round. I'm just doing little dots here and there. If you want to do any sprigs of berries, you could do sprigs. Again, these look pink because I added white because it's just going to help them dry a little bit. I'm going to tuck a couple little berries by my birds. And I'm also going to paint my bow this color. And I'm going to go right on top of the black. And you can play with your bow shape because I'm going to make my bow nice and red, but this pink will help the coverage. And if I want this to come up a little higher, it can come up a little higher. And then these cuttings of the ribbon. Again, this is pink. I'm going to come in with red on top of this. And then this nice boxy center for the bow, a little rectangle for the box in the middle. So right now I have a pink bow and I have pink berries. These are going to dry pretty quickly, and I can come in and put red right on top of them. Look how easy this is. And I have red little berries. My berries are pretty small. And if you're pink, if anybody's doing pink, if your pink shows through a little bit, guess what? That's okay. Oh, don't put a berry in the middle of the painting down here like I just did. It's okay. Paint over it. I had a little berry drop. I'm just putting a little bit of red, a little red on top of these pink berries. And this is kind of a fun, natural way of doing like a 3-dimension too. And take your time with this. I want you to think about placement and spacing of your berries. Maybe you add a couple small berries. Your pink is really wet, like my bow is pretty wet. Give it a minute to dry, or I could just go for it. My berries turn from light pink to like a hot pink, which is kind of fun by putting a little bit of red on top. Love that. But I'm going to paint my bow red. And again, if you want to leave any of this pink showing through, that's okay. You can do that. But check and make sure you're using the right size brush. Say, is my brush too big? Is my brush too small? Do I need to change that? And I'm going to do another coat. My red is, this is the red I'm using is fairly, it's like a student grade paint. So it's very thin. It's not like a thick bodied paint. So that's why it's going on pretty thin. I can let this dry easily. And I got a little bit of red down here, so I'll paint over that. But I'm just going to let it dry and be patient and give it a minute. But you can think about, do I have enough foliage? Do I want to add anything else to my wreath? If you want to make a dark, deep red, oh, like the picture, you can mix a little bit of black to make it like more of a brick like red. So you can do a tiny touch of black with your red and just slowly darken it to be that nice burgundy color. And there's a question. What is fluid acrylic versus regular acrylic? So fluid acrylic just is looser and as in a body. It has other properties, other ingredients in it to make it more like more fluid, more like moves more quickly. Because fluid paints, fluid acrylics can be used for pouring. So when you pour a fluid white and you pour a fluid red, they kind of like move quickly. Yeah. And the question is the paint in a bottle? Most of this paint comes in a bottle. Um, these paints come in lots of bottles, like a bottle like this. So this is acrylic craft red paint. You may see bottles like a little bigger, like this. I have a studio here, so I have all size paint containers. And fluid acrylics come in the same style bottles. So you really, whenever you're buying things, you really should just read the labels really good to make sure you're buying the right acrylic paints. But good questions. All right, so I'm letting mine patiently dry. One of the things I may play with is we're going to do a lot of black detail outlining for our wreath, but I want you to be happy with the amount of green leaves that you have. So for me, I think I'm going to keep it really simple tonight. And I'm going to keep my green really simple.
So Megan, we have one more question. It said, what do you
Yeah.
suggest to use to thin the paint for craft paints?
If you need to thin it for um to I thin the paints all the time. I use water, and the reason I thin it is to create that opacity. That's the purpose on why I thin acrylic paints. If you're doing pour painting, buy the fluid paints. That's what it was designed for. But if you wanted to make paints a little more thin to spread them, like we were a little bit, you can easily just mix a little bit of water and acrylics and just blend it around, and it will loosen itself. It will break up some of those paint pigments so it's softer to the eye. So good questions. And then colored pencils are a terrific choice. I love one of the things about art is like breaking the rules and being really inspired to mix mediums. So sometimes I'll bring in like an ink pen to do like outlining on acrylic, really fun. You could do the same thing with colored pencils. You could grab, once your painting is dry, you could do, instead of using paint tonight, you could use black, you could use a dark colored pencil. You could use a green colored pencil and outline your leaves. You could use a black colored pencil to outline your wreath or your bow. So bringing colored pencils in as a secondary piece to your art is always a fun consideration. That's the blessings of creativity, is just thinking outside the box and using different mediums where you want to try it, because there are, for you to express yourself and have fun, there's no harm and no risk. All about doing what we're inspired to do. And that's what art is all about. And that's why we're here, is for you just to use different parts of your brain and relax. All right. So I'm going to, since I have a little bit of red on my brush, I'm going to mix a little bit of red and white, and I'm going to put a little bit of red on the birds' faces and on the chests, since I have it in my hand. So I'm just going to come in and just putting in a little bit of red on this bird's chest, on the neck, and just coming down the chest a little bit. And I'm going to come in with red, but I'm using the pink just because it will help cover up. This bird has a little bit of red on his face, and it kind of comes halfway down his chest. So I'll use white and gray to fill in the rest of the color for these birds. But this is a great point to start filling in some of this bird-like detail. This bird only has it on his chest, which is really fun. And again, it looks pink because I'm just using this as a base color. So if you want to put a little bit of red on your birds, you're welcome to do that. And I'm just going to gently, I'm putting a little bit of red on these now. So as the pink is drying, I'm just putting a little bit of red on. So figure out where you want to put red on your painting and just take a few minutes to play with the red. And it's okay to do one area, let it dry. Like maybe I'll go back to some of my berries. My berries are pretty wet because I'm doing like big splotches of red, which is okay. Ooh, so pretty. And I still have some pink coming through, so maybe I'll let my berries dry a little bit more. But we just take our time and enjoy the process. Now, a lot of my red is wet, so I'm just gonna take my time and we think about, well, what else do we want to do? I want everyone to be happy with their green, so we're letting the green dry intentionally. Uh, let's think about maybe our birds. Maybe our birds, we put a little bit of white on, and we put a little bit of gray on their wings. This is some of our next steps. So whenever you're ready to transition, letting some of the areas here dry, we can switch and do another area. There's no harm or no foul there. So it's you just going at your own pace. If you are very detail oriented and playing with, your leaf-like detail, I encourage you to do that. But I'm going to take a little bit of white. And since I have a green background, my birds have a little bit of white on them. So I'm going to paint the underside of the bellies of the birds white. And I'm just gonna slowly feather in the white up into the red area. So my little white bellies are starting to kick in. You can gently use the tip of your brush to feather in any white-like feathers. Take your time, play with the detail. If you don't want to use this bright, stark white like me, you can change this color to be whatever you want. If you want to do different colored birds, that's also okay. I'm blending by doing gentle tippity tap brush strokes. I'm gonna do a little bit of white on this head, but I'll add a little gray here as well. So you can see I'm being really playful. For me, the wings are going to be fairly gray, so if you want to put a little bit of white down, you can. But I'm gonna do more so gray. Maybe on the back side of this bird, I'll have a little bit of white, but I'm gonna do some more gray. A little bit of gray on the top of the head, but if you want to put a little bit of white in, you can. It's absolutely up to you. See how my birds are just starting to come to life a little bit. And you can easily mix gray as well. So gray is just a little black and a little bit of white mixed together. So there's my gray, and you don't need very much. So we're gonna keep these details nice and easy. There's so much detail we could do for our little birds here, and we'll play with it. I'll give you different tips and tricks, but just do base colors for right now. And you have these little tails. And if you need to paint the branch going back on the tail, that's fine. So I have, and I could use a darker gray if I wanted to. So play with what colors you're using. Just know with acrylic, like if you're using acrylic tonight, it's a medium where it dries quickly. So if you wanted to change it, like if I wanted to make this a little darker, I could just paint right on top of it. It's no big deal. So these are our birds. It's always fun whenever you're painting birds to add lots of different colors. It kind of brings them to life a little bit. Birds have so many beautiful details to them. It's always so relaxing to paint birds. So play with your colors. So you can play with different tones of gray. So a light gray, a dark gray, as you're filling in the little birds. I love using a little bit of this and a little bit of that. We can use a little bit of water. And I like the darker color. It's really quite nice, the darker gray. But these are your birds, so you can play with the details as you wish. You can do a tiny black dot for the eyes, fairly close to the beaks. You can put your beaks in. Just use a small brush of choice. And look at my birds came to life quite simply with just a little black dot for the eye. And they're not done. I did some really basic colors. I can continue playing with the blending. You can figure out what colors you want your birds to be, if you want them to be lighter, if you want to play with the white a little bit more. You can obviously look at the inspiration. I'll put a little bit of gray on the head. Just take your time in playing with these details. It's quite fun. And I hope everybody's enjoying themselves. I'm so excited to see your artwork. And I'm just doing a little bit of an outline for their body. You can use a gray or you can use a black. You could also have just, some of their bodies. These are little wings right here. There we go. Okay. I'm just making a darker gray. These little wings, if anybody's doing this bird in the middle with me, his wings on the sides are like a dark gray. That looks so great as a little dark gray. This bird's wing here. He didn't have a wing. I added a wing to this bird. He wanted to have a wing over here.
I love how they look like they're talking to each other.
Don't they? I mean, this is the character of animals. Isn't it so fun? It's so fun. Oh yeah. So I'm going to let my birds dry. It's okay to just do some basic coats and come back to them. Um, Now to keep tonight's class really quite simple, there's a couple additional details I'll share with you. Many of these objects have black outlines around them. So I'm going to start by using a small brush. I'm letting my birds dry and I'm going to do a little bit of a black outline around some of these berries. Now, this is optional. If you don't like this, you don't have to do it. But I'm going to show you what it looks like. If you want to do an outline after with a Sharpie or a micron pen or a colored pencil, feel free to do that. I love keeping these classes open-ended for you just to consider what's right for you. We all know what size brushes we have too. Some of you may not have any tiny brushes. Some of you may have just, whatever you had at home. If you want to go to the store and grab some smaller brushes, definitely feel free to do that. Or you can just use an ink pen. Or you don't have to do that, right? So I'm just showing you what it looks like to add a little bit of black detail around your berries. Again, a smaller brush, and I'm being, my lines aren't incredibly tiny. I'm trying to spin the brush, use the point. I could also dip my brush in a little bit of water, add a little bit. We talked about using water on your plate to thin down the acrylic. This is a great time to do that as you outline your objects. And I'm just gently outlining the berries. And I'm going to do the same for the leaves, just to show you what it looks like. Yes, it's a little time consuming, so this is where you can pick and choose where you want to spend your time. I'm going to outline the bow as well, so you choose where you want to be working right now. If you have any questions, do not hesitate to ask. But these are the details that we can really be playful with. Managing the foliage, managing the berries. I'm just doing the berries first. Okay. And then I'll do the holly next, just so you can see the difference. So I'm just doing a gentle Slow outline. I'm using my pinky on the canvas to stabilize my hand. Be careful where you put your pinky. If you don't want to do outlining, you don't have to. You always have a choice of doing one thing or another in our art classes. Just choose whatever is best for you. I'm doing the holly first, and then I'll do the other leaves after. This is where you can connect your holly to your wreath. You can connect your berries to your wreath using this black paint. So if they're flying off in La La Land, you can use your black paint with a little bit of water to connect your berries if you need to. So the black outline is a kind of grounding. And I'm gonna do the same with the little leaves. I'm over here on the right, so I'm just gonna connect, and I'm outlining and connecting the leaves to the black wreath. And again, a little water. So this is a simplistic painting tonight, but you can, again, manage and control which details mean the most to you. But this black outline will really connect it to the wreath, and you can see some of the detail on the right side here. Great example for the difference on the left. So you can pick and choose which styles you want to incorporate for your own painting tonight. They're two totally different looks, and you may have a preference of one look versus the other. Absolutely fine, but use a little water on your brush and use the tip of your brush, those very fine bristles. The more you paint, the more familiar you get with your bristles, of your tools, of your brushes. And you learn to use a little water, like a little water on my brush, mixing it with the black, and it loosens it. And then I spin my brush and I find those pointy bristles on the end to outline these leaves and ground and connect those leaves to the wreath. Or outline the berries, whatever detail you're on. Okay, and what a difference, right? Really quite beautiful in both cases. So you can pick and choose your style, and I'll do the bow at the very end. Or if you want to do the bow now, that's fine too, doesn't matter. But I'm just, again, a little water with your black, loosen that up, spin your brush, pay attention to the bristles of your brush. Check and say, do I need to use a different brush? Okay, and don't put your finger in the red berry and then put little berries all over with your pinky. I'm a lefty. I like to drag my hand in my artwork. It's not my best quality. I'm sure we all do that in our own regards, right? But I encourage you all to check out and follow the AARP New Hampshire space. Be sure to join us in January for our next class. I hope you join us. Tell a friend, bring a friend. It's always fun to have someone join you. If you can't, no big deal. It's always fun to have a little alone time too. All right, I'm slowly outlining these details. If there's any questions, if there's any way I can support you in your artistic journey tonight, do not hesitate to reach out. Use that chat window. But otherwise, relax and continue to enjoy this process. So really relaxing class tonight because we took a few minutes to ground ourselves on some of these objects. Again, you can connect your leaves to the black wreath behind. Oh, and someone has a question, I think, what we're going to be painting next. Absolutely. Let me go ahead and look that up for you. Awesome. Let me check. Sneak peek of what we're painting next. Absolutely.
And I've just put in the YouTube address for the recorded
terrific.
session again.
Oh, next class is going to be quite magical. I think you all are going to like this. Let's see if I can grab it for you. It is, I don't want to call this Northern Lights, but it's kind of like a winter swirling sky. It's quite magical. Let me go ahead and paste it into the chat window. Just kidding, I can't. Let me save it. All right, 1 second. All right, let me just save it to my desktop and I'll upload it in just a moment. I encourage you to join. This is going to be a really fun one. We'll be playing with lots of colors. January 2024 AARP New Hampshire paint night. All right, let me upload this to the chat window for you.
And just to remind people, this will be on the 22nd.
Yes, ma'am. All right, there's the inspiration. It's coming through. It's quite beautiful. And I will just, let me confirm the 22nd. Yes, 22nd at 6 p.m. All right. Terrific. All right. Wonderful. All right, I'm gonna go back to my Zoom screen. 2025. Yes, you're right. It's not gonna be 2024, it's gonna be 2025. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and finish my green outlining. And 2024. This is the mistake that we make so frequently at the end of the year, isn't it? And into the new year. All right. Thanks for keeping me accountable here. All right, I'm going to do some gentle outlining, finishing these green areas, and then I'm going to go up and do my bow. Once I'm done my bow and our final, we have about 15 minutes left of tonight's class. And again, you can easily continue painting. This is, again, one of those inspirations where you can keep painting and you could spend another hour or two. It just depends on how simple you want to go. But I'm just going to outline this here. I'm going to go up and outline my bow as well. And this is really going to allow my bow to come to life. You can also reshape your bow or add additional detail. My bow is nothing fancy. I kept it really simple. I am going to add a nice kind of rounded knot to the bow. My bow kind of looks like Dr. Seuss a little bit. It's okay. I can always use a little bit more red paint and restructure it. My bow kind of has some of this intentional cut lines on the bottom. Can do a little bit of a line across the top of the bow. You can make your bow boxy or smooth. My bow is a little more boxy than rounded, so it's absolutely up to you on the shape of your bow. And I'm just doing a full outline on the bow. And I have some nice fine points coming down. Okay. And then I can kind of look around. I love the outline. It's quite beautiful. You can, if you want to add in some scripted text, you could do that as well. The inspiration for January, I can re-upload that. And I can do the bird's feet as well. So let me re-upload the inspiration for January. It's re-uploading now in the chat window. The bird's feet, you can use, again, your small black brush and little legs. Thank you. See, this is why we have to hold each other accountable. Little legs coming down. 1 and 2. You can outline the tails of the bird with a little bit of black if you wanted to. You could outline the bird's rounded wing with a little bit of black paint. You could outline these tails. I may write holiday and joy with script and text. Text can be scary, like let's just be honest with one another when we talk about text, but we have pencils, which can make things easier. So I may do it in pencil first and then use that fine water and black paint mixed together, makes it nice, smooth, easy brush strokes, but I'm gonna use a pencil first to write it. Yeah, the January class is gonna be a lot of fun. definitely be sure to bring a friend and join us. So I'm going to turn my canvas to me just so it's in front of me so I can try to write the text with a pencil. I am going to write Holiday and Joy. I think that's really sweet. And I'm going to do a nice scripted text. So and I'm making sure my text is centered. And it's a little uneven from it's a little uneven, so I'm gonna probably erase it and you can play with the positioning a little bit. This is why we use pencil, ladies and gents. But I could just kind of extend this over and make it even like that. So I extended the Y from the J and I just went over a little bit and now it looks a little bit more even. So for me, because I extended the curly Q, it looks better now. I'm going to use a small brush of choice. Again, if you don't want to do the text, you don't have to. But I'm using a little water and a little bit of black paint. And I'm going to be confident and bold. And I'm just going to go for it. So with a steady hand. If you need to lay your canvas down flat, feel free to do that. I'm going to make my L a little taller. Go back and get a little bit more paint. Holiday. I'm gonna do a little dot for my eye. And the joy is very joyous. There's a lot of swirlies and dots and things. There. So I do have pencil. I'll bring it nice and close. You can see my pencil underneath it. I use the pencil as a guide, but I did change it up a little bit. So you can see I did some long curlies to kind of accentuate the different letters. But using a pencil to do that detail was definitely helpful beforehand. But I'm going to go in and erase the pencil behind after everything is dry. So that's an intent I have. Now I have a little bit of a blemish down here. I'm going to mix that green and cover that up. But everyone is doing really well. We have just under 10 minutes of class left. So continue to work on your details. I'll do a little bit more detail on my birds. I'm so glad everyone's enjoying themselves. If there's any questions, follow-up questions, please don't hesitate to reach out. It's always a pleasure to connect with you all and be a resource for you as you are painting and enjoying these creative activities. I'm so glad that you've made this time for yourself tonight to be playful and join us. But I'm gonna have a little fun with my bird's feathers. Again, this is where you can spend a lot of time or a little time. I'm just kind of softening some of these feathers with the tip of my brush. This is where we did some of these basic details. And if you wanted to come in and bring some little white-like feathers up, you could do that. You could do little white feathers. I love the overlap of the white and red. And just a little bit of feathers on their chest. The class is recorded. I encourage you to check out the recording. Be sure to follow the YouTube space. It's quite good from AARP New Hampshire. And again, a big thanks to Linda and Mary and the team for having us. We would not be able to have these classes without their support. So thank you so much for having us as always. And a very happy holiday to you as well. Linda, thank you. I'll hold my birds a little closer. I just did some fun little detail work on their chest.
They look beautiful.
They're so cute, right?
Yeah, they
Thank
really are
you.
adorable. Somebody got in late and they're asking if this is being recorded, and yes, it is.
You're so welcome. You're so welcome. So I'm going to fix my little blemish here. I'll hang out for another 6 minutes or so. We'll look around, see if there's any additional detail. There's a lot more depth detail we could do to the leaves and to the bow, but this is a really simple approach for our class tonight, but I hope you enjoyed it. What we will do is I will remove my spotlight and pin, and I'm going to go to gallery view. And I'm not sure, are we able to see others' videos for the hosts on the call, or is that not possible? If
Think,
not, it's no problem.
yeah, I think if we change it to gallery, I think we can. I'm not sure. Let's see.
Let me see
So,
here. Let me go to, I'm in gallery view. I can't see folks, but maybe
Yeah,
if we can't, it's okay. But I
Yeah.
encourage folks, if you have any follow-up questions, don't hesitate to reach out to me. Thank you everyone for joining. Lots of folks had a nice time, which is great to hear. I wish you all a very happy holiday. And I'll hang out for a few more minutes if anyone needs anything. But again, a big thanks to the team at AARP New Hampshire. We would not be here without them. And it's always wonderful to be here to support your downtime and for you to play with creativity a little differently. All right.
Lots of positive responses. People had a good time.
Yeah, it was a beautiful, simplistic inspiration. And I like that people can kind of take it where they wish, which is always really nice.
Very nice.
Absolutely. Happy holidays, you all. Thank you so much. And I hope to see you in the new year. Be safe. Enjoy the holidays. Thank you, Valerie. Great to see you. Mahalo. All right.
Oh, somebody had a question in there. Let's see.
I know. Oh, how do I fix the pink spot on my painting? I need to do that, don't I? And Ruth painted our pumpkins last month. Oh, that's so awesome. I hope you loved our pumpkins. That was a really fun one. Thanks, Claudia. Thanks for joining. So awesome. Thank you, Jane, Margarita, Miss Nancy. Thank you. I'm gonna fix that pink spot. I'm gonna use a green. Well, my background green. Finding a clean brush. The tricky with the spot with that pink spot is if I have any of that paint color left. Amen, I do. Oh, look at this. Boop, 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 boop. Pink spot is gone. Nearly. Because I had some of that paint left over, thank goodness. Amen for that.
Yeah.
Encourage you, if you all love your artwork, I encourage you to buy an 11-14 frame and frame it and hang it in your home. It's wonderful. Kat, thank you so much for coming. I hope you enjoyed yourself. Muriel, thank you so much. Gladys, thanks for being here. Susan Kelly, first timer. I'm so glad you're here. I hope you had a nice time. Miss Nancy. Oh, he wants to make Christmas cards next year. Oh, or he or she. Love that idea. Oh,
Okay.
and Connie, with her creativity, used watercolor, acrylic, and pens. High five, Connie, for doing something a little outside the box. I appreciate you. Margarita, awesome for coming. Wonderful.
Okay, I'm going to stop the recording.
Yes. Thank you, Linda and Mary, both for being here. And folks, be sure to follow along the AARP New Hampshire resources, and we hope to see you again soon.
All righty. Good night.
Night. Thank you.
okay, so Linda?